Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast forest just as dawn begins to break. Mist clings to towering pines, the sun's first rays weaving ribbons of light among the moss and leaves, and in that silence, broken only by a gentle breeze, you sense something profoundly alive. It feels as if the ground beneath your feet is humming with potential. In that moment, you might sense the echoes of all the generations who have stood there before you, their presence lodged in the lingering hush, their stories etched into the soil. This is more than poetic musings about ancestral spirits. It is an invitation to consider just how intimately our biology and our deepest values might intertwine. We often think of inheritance as a purely genetic affair, relegated to the contents of our chromosomes. Yet science is beginning to reveal that inheritance may extend well beyond the double helix. In labs around the world, researchers studying quantum biology are uncovering extraordinary phenomena. Quantum coherence in photosynthesis, tunneling in enzyme reactions, entanglement that connects particles over vast distances that stretch our imagination about the invisible threads that hold life together. These discoveries challenge the traditional boundaries of what we believed biology could do. They point toward a realm where, at the tiniest scales, energy can slip through barriers, information can be preserved against all odds, and connections can persist across space in ways that defy our ordinary sense of distance. If quantum biology shows us how life harnesses these subtle forces, spiritual inheritance reminds us that our existence is equally shaped by intangible legacies, love, moral principles, and collective wisdom. The compassion of a great-grandparent you never met, the perseverance of an ancient ancestor you only know through stories, the resonance of beliefs passed down through centuries they can feel like currents in the bloodstream, guiding decisions and shaping perspectives. Perhaps this spiritual inheritance is, in its own way, a quantum of consciousness, something powerful, shared and enduring, even when the people who first carried those dreams are no longer here to speak of them. In our time together, I invite you to explore how energy, memory and continuity form a triad that can bridge quantum biology and spiritual legacy. We will examine real scientific examples, like how electrons in photosynthesis seem to know the best path to the heart of a cell's energy factory, and draw parallels to how a family's love or a community's wisdom can cut through the most imposing obstacles. We will reflect on memory not just as something stored in dusty photo albums, but as an active force woven into our cells and daily actions. And we will consider how the quantum notion of entanglement might echo in the spiritual realm, where bonds of purpose and devotion link us across centuries. At the end of this journey, my hope is that you leave with a new sense of wonder, humbled by the intricate tapestry of life, but also empowered by the realization that you stand on the shoulders of extraordinary legacies, both biological and spiritual. Together, let us step into this forest of ideas and feel the pulse of possibility beneath our feet. Let us open our minds to how the smallest quantum flickers might illuminate the grandest human truths, forging a road that leads us beyond the boundary of a single lifetime. Because, in the end, isn't that what inheritance, of any kind, is about? It is the transmission of a spark, a piece of light that endures, that evolves, and that beckons future generations to keep it alive. Energy is often described as the currency of life. In the realm of quantum biology, this currency flows through processes so elegantly orchestrated that they can seem like magic. Take photosynthesis, for instance. The sunlight that falls upon a leaf does not simply scatter or burn uselessly. Rather, it is harvested by tiny packets of energy called excitons. What fascinates scientists is that these excitons navigate the molecular maze inside the leaf with astonishing efficiency, seemingly exploring multiple pathways at once in a quantum superposition. In other words, instead of stumbling around in the dark, the energy in a plant cell appears to use quantum coherence to pinpoint the most direct route for its mission of converting sunlight into life-sustaining sugar. This phenomenon is a stark reminder that beneath the surfaces we easily perceive, there may be a hidden layer of nature where possibilities overlap, where the normal rules of trial and error are suspended in favor of a more sublime coordination. Now let us bring this back to the idea of spiritual inheritance. When we speak of love, compassion, or wisdom as energies, we often do so metaphorically. But what if these intangible forces function much like quantum energy? They can pass from person to person, unseen and unfettered by distance, and they can cut through layers of cynicism or separation in ways that defy our logical understanding. Just as an exciton might tunnel through a molecular barrier, love has a way of tunneling through the barriers we build around our hearts, sometimes appearing in moments and places we least expect. Consider how a grandparent's faith in humanity can keep resonating in the hearts of grandchildren who never directly heard those words of encouragement. Think about the quiet perseverance of an ancestor who overcame great adversity, and how that might ripple forward, forming a wellspring of courage for the generation that follows. When we frame these ideas in purely physical terms, it can sound whimsical or unscientific to speak of spiritual energies. Yet quantum biology is reminding us that life itself may be harnessing a realm of possibilities where distances shrink, where information travels in surprising ways, and where what we call limits are sometimes illusions. In that same spirit, spiritual energies, love, hope, conscience, can move across time and space, defying limitations we assume are absolute. The continuity of a cherished tradition, the bond between distant relatives, the moral momentum of an entire lineage. These can all be understood as forms of energy transfer, guiding us in ways that often remain unspoken yet undeniably felt. Energy, whether it is the literal photons dancing through a leaf or the intangible vibrations of devotion passed from parent to child, is at the heart of life's resilience. It is what powers us, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. In opening our minds to the quantum world, we might see that even the most rational definitions of energy cannot fully capture its mystery. And in opening our hearts to the spiritual dimension, we might see that what we cherish as love or hope is as fundamental and potent a force as any we study under a microscope. By recognizing energy in both spheres, quantum biology and spiritual inheritance, we edge closer to a holistic understanding of how life sustains itself, and how our personal roles are interwoven with forces far more ancient and expansive than we might have imagined. Memory is a cornerstone of identity, bridging our past experiences with the present moment and shaping the possibilities of our future. In quantum biology, the very notion of memory takes on a fascinating quality. At a molecular level, certain biological processes appear to remember which configurations or pathways lead to successful outcomes. One could point to DNA repair mechanisms, where enzymes guided by quantum tunneling can correct mutations swiftly and with remarkable accuracy. These tiny machineries have, in a sense, an embedded knowledge of what the DNA code should look like, and they work tirelessly to protect that information against the constant threat of damage. Though this is not memory in the usual sense of recollecting stories or events, it illustrates that there is a form of continuity in how information is recognized, preserved, and restored at the smallest scales of life. This microscopic memory has an echo in how we inherit spiritual and cultural legacies. Humans have always passed down stories, rituals, and moral teachings that preserve the essence of who we are as a people. The bedtime stories told by a grandparent, the guiding principles found in spiritual texts, or even the familial patterns we might see, these are all forms of memory. They transcend our individual lives and become something akin to cultural DNA, shaping our personal decisions and collective identities. The traumas and triumphs of one generation leave imprints on the next, not only in the epigenetic changes that modern research is beginning to uncover, but also in the psyche of families and communities. When we speak of ancestral memory, we refer to how we carry forward the echoes of joys, sorrows, and lessons we have never personally experienced, yet somehow know intimately. Quantum coherence offers an apt metaphor here. It is the idea that certain systems, though fragile, can maintain a harmonious state over time. In the realm of the spirit, memory can act like a stabilizing force, allowing us to remain in tune with the lessons and values that matter most. We might find ourselves pondering the wisdom of an elder who died long before we were born, or recalling a family legend that seems to reverberate with undeniable truth. Through these processes, memory bridges the divide between the physical and metaphysical, ensuring that nothing truly worth preserving is lost. This bridge between the material and the spiritual is what enriches our sense of self. It reminds us that we are not isolated fragments bound by a single lifespan, but threads in a much larger tapestry. The quantum mysteries that underpin life teach us that memory is not as ephemeral as we might assume. Instead, it can be remarkably resilient, carried in molecules and in the reverberations of heartfelt teachings. As we come to appreciate memory in this expanded sense, we begin to see that the legacy of our ancestors, whether rooted in the structure of our DNA or in the moral wisdom of stories passed through centuries, converges to shape our individual and collective journeys. That convergence is what sustains our continuity, binding us to both the smallest quantum flickers and the broadest arcs of human history. Continuity is the force that ties energy and memory together and allows both to ripple through time. In quantum physics, a striking example of continuity can be found in the phenomenon of entanglement, where two particles, once linked, remain connected in their properties no matter how far apart they travel. Though the precise mechanics of entanglement remain hotly debated and researched, the underlying message for our conversation is that certain bonds can transcend what we ordinarily consider insurmountable distances. This forms a poetic parallel to the spiritual inheritance that can leap across generations. A prayer, once uttered hundreds of years ago by a distant ancestor, might still resonate in the heart of a modern-day descendant who has never set foot in the ancestor's homeland. The intangible thread that links them may be invisible, yet it is no less real in its effects, shaping identity, offering comfort, and guiding moral choices. Continuity is evident in nature's rhythms. Seasons succeed one another in cycles. Animals migrate according to ancient patterns. The earth itself spins and orbits in a cosmic dance that has endured for eons. In the human realm, continuity ensures that the lessons of the past do not evaporate when a generation passes away. Whether in the form of cultural traditions, songs, or deeply held beliefs, these inheritances maintain a presence that can be felt in family gatherings, community celebrations, and even in solitary moments of reflection. The child learning to recite a traditional lullaby might be connecting with a lineage spanning centuries, performing an act of inheritance that is both deeply personal and profoundly collective. In the context of quantum biology, continuity helps us see how certain states of coherence or resonance might be sustained, guiding the efficiency of biological processes over an organism's entire lifespan. When we transfer that understanding to spiritual matters, we begin to see that continuity also holds families, cultures, and entire civilizations together over extended periods. Religious teachings or ethical philosophies that originated thousands of years ago still inform how people across the globe interpret morality, justice, and compassion. Their resonance persists in much the same way that entangled particles remain correlated even after being separated, reminding us that distance, whether measured in miles, years, or cultural shifts, cannot fully dissolve these deeper bonds. This perspective has the power to transform how we see our place in the world. Rather than feeling adrift in an ever-changing sea, continuity reminds us that we belong to something bigger, a weave of people, events, and spiritual insights that predates us and that will outlast our personal lifespan. In that belonging, we find not just stability, but also responsibility. Just as quantum biology suggests that every particle's state affects the whole, so too do our actions, beliefs, and values ripple through our families and communities, both now and in the future. Continuity, then, is not a static inheritance. It is a dynamic, living pulse that charges each of us with the task of stewarding the energy and memory we have received, ensuring that they remain vital for those who will follow after. It is in this interweaving of energy, memory, and continuity that we catch a glimpse of how quantum biology and spiritual inheritance might inform and enrich each other. Life's subtle quantum processes, once dismissed as theoretical curiosities, are proving to be integral to how living organisms harness and organize energy. And our intangible legacies, love, values, visions, can also be seen as subtle forces shaping family after family, culture after culture. In both realms, the interplay is delicate, often hidden from ordinary view, yet profoundly important for survival and growth. When we allow ourselves to see inheritance as broader than genetics, we open the door to a new and more expansive story of who we are. We recognize that our very cells operate in a quantum landscape of potentials, and that our hearts and minds operate in a similarly sublime landscape, shaped by ancestral dreams and sacred wisdom. In acknowledging these parallel truths, we discover that the boundaries between science and spirituality are not as rigid as we once believed. They are, in fact, edges of the same vast tapestry, each revealing the other's pattern in ways that inspire awe, humility, and a renewed sense of purpose. May we carry forward this awareness into our everyday lives, honoring the energy that nurtures our physical and spiritual selves, preserving the memory that gives us identity and guidance, and upholding continuity not simply for the sake of tradition, but for the promise of what comes next. In doing so, we step onto a path where the earliest dawn of existence meets the endless horizon of possibility, and we find ourselves miraculously right at the center of it all.